All right, so welcome everyone. Today, the focus is job search. We're going to keep this to 30 minutes and be prompt. Three big things I want to make sure I cover in this time. First one is keywords, second being search engines and really being efficient when we use them. And then the third one, which is beyond the computer. We spend a lot of time and it's very easy to focus on this online search. And so I would definitely want to give you tools and tips and resources for that, but we also know that's only a portion of it. So I want to make sure we touch upon what you can do outside of the computer. So the first thing is keywords, and I want to stress this because I throw this term around all the time, and it becomes this thread that really is throughout your job search. It is the thing you throw into the search bar to say, I'm looking for this type of job, or I'm looking in this area, or I'm looking what I can do with this degree. It's also on the employer side. So when we say, as a career advisor, when we say keywords, what we're talking about is the words you see repetitively in the job description. So a lot of times it's in the requirements or it's in the description itself. You may find it in other places, but those are the major areas we want to look for. And those are the ones that we will see that you want to keep as a thread throughout your resume, throughout your cover letter, and throughout discussions when you're interviewing. Now, a lot of times, and this whole presentation is developed around, these are the conversations I have with people. And so if I'm sitting with somebody and I'm having a one-on-one conversation and they're going, I'm not sure where to start, some of the things I'll say is, let's put this into 4 buckets. And I'll ask, what do you care the most about? Do you care about the mission? So is it the mission of an organization, what they do, what they focus on? Are they about innovation? Are they about public service? Are they about technology? Whatever it is. Are they about education? Whatever. Or is it environmental factors? Are you saying, you know, I really need to be in a certain location. I have to have a certain salary. I want to work in a large company or a small company. I want to work independently, or I want to be part of a team. All those different components that make up, right now, a lot of people are talking about remote work. So the environmental factors are kind of those working conditions. Job title. So I just asked all of you what your interests are. Some people will come into a job search saying, I want to be the CEO, or I want to be the financial analyst, or I want to be the nurse, or I want to be the business analyst, whatever it is. And it's that job title that's most important to them. This is a common area where most of us start, because we're trying to narrow it down, and we're trying to see what comes up when we search for the things we think are out there. The 4th bucket I throw out there is who you serve. Who you serve means, who is that audience? Is it that you're working with college students? Is it that you are working for certain clients like big businesses? Are you looking for working with immigrants, refugees, victims of abuse, children, elderly, animals, whatever population you really want to serve? Now, in this area, one of the resources I really like is Onat. And I'm going to show you this real quick. And what I want to give is an example of marketing, because marketing is another common one people look for. If you haven't seen it, this is a government resource. These little numbers here actually relate to a search if you were searching for a government job. So they kind of all speak to each other. Same thing if you look at Bureau of Labor and Statistics. What I like about this, and why I like to highlight it for people, is marketing is a great example. Like engineering, when you look for engineering, the jobs are pretty much always called engineer. So there's not a huge mystery. But in marketing, you have these like super different terms. I could be a marketing manager, but I could be a coordinator. I could be product. It could be brand management. It could be about clients or accounts. So this to me is a really helpful tool, because there's not one common language in those keywords, but all of these could be terms and keywords that I search for to get me to that, in this situation, marketing position. The other thing I'm just going to highlight while I'm here on this one, once again, this is just an example. Tasks are things that I would look to make sure and compare my resume to, if this was the job that interests me. Technology and skills. This can be a whole nother area where I search. This could be another keyword. So if I was looking for jobs in higher education, at URI, we use PeopleSoft. A lot of places are using Brightspace. We use Handshake for a job search engine. Those could all become additional keywords in my search. If I am looking in something in engineering, I might be looking at other keywords like MATLAB, or I might be looking for something that in this situation, we talk about communications and customer relations, the CRMs. Those are huge for marketing and for a lot of the client-facing jobs. So this is a whole other little treasure trove of potential keywords. And then at the bottom of most of them, not all of them, they'll have another section that has related occupations. And I like this too, because maybe I'm in this situation looking at marketing, but marketing could very well overlap with public relations. So that could be an easy area that I want to go in. Marketing often parallels sales. So do I want to look at the sales route, or do I want to look at events? So another whole bunch of options. And then all of this also goes back to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So there's some more kind of information you can find off of this. So back to that keywords, and these are just some examples, but the big thing I'm trying to stress is if I'm doing an online search, I can put in that job title I have in mind. I can go back to a resource like Onat and find a bunch of other potential related jobs and job titles. I can look at the industry. The industry to me is super important, and we'll look at that in a minute, because the industry helps me know what search engines may be a good resource for me. Other thing is looking for companies, and you can look for companies in two layers. One is I want to work for this company. The other one is there a company that overlaps a lot? So if you were looking to work in the environment and you say, gosh, I would like to work for EPA, but even if I don't, EPA could be another big keyword because of them being an overarching body. So a lot of people are working for companies that have to respond to EPA regulations. So it could be them, or it could be that they are one of those common phrases and common agencies that you would work with. So just an example of the industry, companies that you might look at, alternative titles for that job, and then going into the key skills. Is there something that is big on your resume? Is there something that are those common words you see in all the jobs you're interested in? And this is the search phase. So this could be you have the skill, or that it's just one that you keep seeing coming up. And so you're going to use that as a keyword to get you to those jobs, and then figure out, okay, do I meet enough of the qualifications to apply? Is this a skill I want to keep developing? So keywords, and then search engine. So search engines, the first thing to kind of quicken your search is to say, let's set what we already know to be true. Do you know you have to have a part-time or full-time? Do you know the distance, the salary, the things I had already discussed as being environmental factors? What are the things that are your non-negotiables you have to have? Next, thinking about the industry. And I like thinking about the industry in two different areas. So let's use IT as an example. Now I can look at a website like Dice. Dice is well known as a primary technology search engine. Great. Now, if I want to do IT, but I want to do it in healthcare, I might look at Dice, but I also might start looking at that industry. I might look at the healthcare industry sites, because that's the place I want to be, even though I'm not doing healthcare, I'm doing IT, but I'm doing it within that industry. Definitely, as you see these search engines, and a lot of times people go for the big ones like the Indeeds and the LinkedIns and get automatic notices. And I think that's really helpful to kind of save a little legwork. Do the same thing if you know companies that you're interested in. Sign up for their email so you get to know as soon as a job opens. It gets kind of complicated to keep track of all the different places you could be going. And the big thing is I want it to be efficient. So BuzzFile is one I want to show you. And I often call this my back pocket resource. So this is the one where you have kind of exhausted things. You're starting to look and say, I really want to find the employer versus finding and just going on a search engine itself. So this one is not a job search engine, but it is a company one. And it tells you who has hired by which major. And that's why I like it. So it's not a URI one, so it might not exactly line up with your major, but you find something that is close. So we're going to look at civil engineering for a second. We're not going to look at the ad. I'm going to try not to look at the ad. Now from here, I can pick states. So we are in Rhode Island. I'm going to give Rhode Island our love. And what will come up next is a list of different companies and the size, how many employees. And that gives you an idea, like, is it a really tiny company? Is this one that is likely to be hiring? Or is it something that's really large? So I put in civil engineering. Okay, Gilbane. This might be a company that I want to look and see. Is there a URI alum that works there? Is there somebody I can talk to? Do I just want to reach out to their HR? Do I just want to take a little time to get to know them? Are they a company I'm interested in? So this to me is really good for starting to identify places, especially if you do not live where you're looking to work. So I work a lot of times with people who are just transitioning, and either they're transitioning and they want to make a move physically, or they're just transitioning out of college and they're looking to move to a different state. I can go back and choose a different state. And that gives me an idea of who are those businesses, what are those companies in that state. So like I said, it's my back pocket resource. I usually go back to this once I've exhausted other things. Last big point that I want to put is when looking at search engines, I like to look at the big, the small, and the niche. Big ones that come up all the time: Indeed, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, Monster, all these things. We see them, we hear them, there's commercials for them. They're great. The thing that really benefits people is there's so many options. There's thousands of jobs. They usually have a cleaner search engine, so it is easy to navigate through. The tricky part is now I also have thousands upon thousands of people as competition. So there's that up and down side for each thing. That's why I like to vary it between the big, the small, and the niche. So the small would be less options, but less competition. And then the niche are really going to those industry specific ones. So I'm going to walk through a couple examples. I'm going to switch this to Indeed real quick. So Indeed will be my first one. The thing I want to highlight with Indeed if you start here, you just kind of type in your keywords, but you can go the next layer down that I think is really helpful. And this is where I go over here and I see advanced job search. Now, if I was using my phone, I would want to just search for advanced job search Indeed, because on your phone, it just doesn't come across. Now, for the example I gave before, if I said, I want to work in IT and healthcare, I could type that in right here in this section with all of these words. The one that I commonly use is with at least one of these words. So we'll see, I'm going to stick with one of my recent ones. So now I'm looking at an example that would be environmental. I'm throwing in these keywords: conservation, zoo, aquarium, GIS. So I'm doing the sectors, who might those employers be, a tool that I might be using. And then for anything that is a two-part word, I want to put little quotation marks around it, or else every time education pops up, it'll come up. So it gives me a chance just to narrow it down. We'll do this again: business analyst, SQL, data analyst, intelligence, marketing, and all these little quotation marks around it. Then from here, I use all the same sort of refining features. Big thing, whenever I'm using a large search engine, I tell people, make sure you're looking 7 days or less. I think one of your biggest factors here when using a large search engine is that timing is such a big deal. Because you have so much competition, If that job is a month old, then chances are my time is not being spent as efficiently as possible. That job may already be gone. So I want to look at something that's 7 days or less, and then I want to be applying to it within about 24 hours. So I want to make that definitely under 2 weeks total, but if I can be under a week, that's preferable. And then you have all your results that come up. Like everything, this is a testing. So if you find environmental is a good example. People put in the word environmental and then they find a lot of cleaning positions. Oh, that wasn't what I was looking for. Okay, now we just refine our keywords, and that's where environmental education or environmental scientist, and we use the quotation marks. Or if you see something keeps coming up you don't want, there is an area where you can say, do not include these. So I can exclude the sales positions that I don't want, or the cleaning position that I don't want, or if there's a certain industry that I know I don't want to be in. From here, you have 55. So that's an easy amount to go through. My goal is usually to have about 100 or so. That's really quick. If I come back and I had 300, I would just start using these refining features. And you can use them either way just to make it faster for you. All right, I know I need full time. I know that I am mid-level, senior level, entry level, and all that's going to help me make this just even faster. Now, I wanted to show you a few other ones while we're here. One is on Indeed, or LinkedIn, sorry, just looked at Indeed. On LinkedIn, they have the little jobs area. The thing that sometimes people do not know is that I can do that same search and search for a bunch of stuff at once. The big thing is I just have to use or in capital letters. I can use and also, so I could go back to that healthcare and IT example and use that, but I just need or in capital letters, and then all the same stuff that this is going to come up with a bunch of results. We're going to make sure that we're looking at that shorter timeline and keep using the refining features. This has 100 results at this point. Once again, totally doable for me to search through, but I can still use, all right, I want to be entry level, internship, associate. Let me see how that reduces. Okay, do I want to go through 80 or do I keep going? So LinkedIn has a search feature. I want to also show, I'm going to start getting rid of some of these. I want to also show you USA jobs. So another one of these little, this is an example of a smaller search engine. It's not small by any means. This is like your federal government database, but it is smaller. And the thing I want to highlight here is there's a section called pathways. Now, if I'm working with somebody who just graduated or graduated in the last 2 years, there is a section for recent graduates. The thing I like about this is if I am a recent graduate, this kind of helps me. These are navigating federal jobs. It's a whole other animal. There's more details, and it's very specific when applying. Having a pathway for a more recent graduate helps me and helps them with the expectations. They don't expect you to come in with a lot of experience. So hopefully it gives you just a little bit more of a head start. There's also, and I will share the presentation. All of these links are in there because I know I'm going really quick through them. One of the other resources I really like when thinking small is that each state has a state job bank. Now, this is different from state jobs where you work for the state, versus a state job bank, which is the state itself has said, hey, local employers, please put your job listings here so that our local residents know of them. So once again, if I'm looking to make a move, I can find for any one of the states, the state job bank. And while we're hanging out here, let's talk niche. So I work strictly with alumni. This is one of our undergraduate resources. I use it all the time with alumni because they've done a really good job of identifying different niche search engines that can help you. I'm going to show them in two parts. One, we're going to look here, science, math, engineering. On the next page, there's going to be a couple of tabs. One will say searching for a job or internship. So if I click on searching for a job or internship, here's a whole bunch of niche search engines. So Handshake is the URI one that's available to all students and alumni to see and post jobs. And then there's all these DICE, computer science, engineering. This one we actually just got word about, Williams Mystic program. Energy fellows, they actually just put something out that they're currently recruiting energy fellows. So this has a whole list. The other thing that I really like off of here is what can I do with my major? Once again, it's an undergraduate resource, but I use it with alumni because there's two things that I find in this. One is that it shows some associations that are really good. It gives me a whole list of keywords, and it also gives me some niche search engines. So we're going to look real quick on education. And once it comes up next, it's going to divide it into areas of education. So K through 12, higher education, adult and continuing, business communications, government, nonprofits. So let's go back to that higher education for an example. So when looking at higher education, for me, here's a whole bunch of those keywords that I could be using for what's appropriate for me. Looking at the employers, this one's pretty straightforward within higher education. And what we should see at the bottom here is a resource called Higher Ed Jobs Online. That's definitely my favorite one. So what I like with this, and you can go back and once again, look by the industry you want to work in or look at the profession you're in itself, but it's going to come up with all these different associations. These are great places to start networking. These are great areas. I use LinkedIn all the time. LinkedIn is like one of my number ones. So I could find these associations, see if there's a LinkedIn group. If so, join them for free, start a conversation with people, see who's active. But then here's the other list of, once again, those niche employers. So a whole other way to get much smaller and much more specific, have less competition, but also be able to talk the talk a little, be more relevant for the industry I'm looking at. So once again, I'll share this because I have links to all these different ones that just give examples of great resources for that online job search. Efficiency, we touched upon this, getting the timing counts, want to make sure that you're looking at that short timeline, using those and or ors so that instead of searching for a job, doing a full search, come back and do it again, I can search for a bunch of jobs or a bunch of keywords at one time. Searching for more jobs at once, follow the directions, especially when you're looking at the government jobs. The government jobs, the process is so long and windy, but the big thing is if you're not following the directions at the right time, you become excluded, you rule yourself out. Other thing I like to remind people is applying for positions, even if you're not 100% qualified. And this varies. I, in general, tell people if you meet about 75% of the requirements, it's worth applying to. Is it worth applying if you meet less? Sure. If you want to meet 100%, go for it. But I think in order to be most respectful and efficient with your time, 75% or more, prioritize those jobs. And then after that, if there are other ones that interest you, go ahead and apply. I've worked with employers that say they'll accept 50%. I've worked with employers that say you need to be at 100%. It really just depends. If you know somebody, using them as a referral, it's all about eliminating risk for the employer. So the more touch points and connections that you have, the more likely they are to really follow through and want to hire you. So super quick, the beyond the computer. If you've been in a program, your education is a big piece of this. And whether that is finishing a degree or taking a certificate or taking one course, you now have that whole network of people that you can reach out to. You also can go back as an alum and look, and I'll show you that at the very end too, of how to look for contacts on LinkedIn. Gaining the internal support. I mean, I always use Rhode Island as an example because it's a small state, but this is true wherever you go. People know each other. There's always a connection. So just having an open conversation, saying you're interested in something, you may have a family friend, a connection. There may be somebody else who you don't know either works in that industry or knows somebody. Networking groups, I love different groups, and I know networking itself can feel uncomfortable for people. And if I think about it, it might be, here's something I either want to volunteer, or I want to intern, or I want to be at a high level of volunteering. I want to join a board or a committee that allows me to get to know the others genuine and at a deeper level. And that really can build its own opportunities, as well as just building up my resume, my confidence in the field. The targeting employers, definitely super important. Being able to ask for informational interviews, have those conversations. Last thing I want to highlight here is URI Career Connect. So we recently created a mentor database that we've invested in. This is a free resource for you. You can find alumni. There's, I think, 1,200 or so alumni who are on that right now. And they've actually came forward and said, like, yes, we want to talk to people, and whether it's talking about the industry they work in or for them to review your resume. It's a great free resource for you. You have probably heard this phrase, if you are searching for a job, it's a job. Searching for a job is a job. Take the stress off. Designate some time. Just keep track. And if you keep a little file that has the job listings that you apply to, save those descriptions because the links may disappear, but then keep track and start looking for those patterns. Are there certain sites that you apply on that you get better results? Are there certain jobs that seem to respond to you better? That gives you an idea of, okay, my resume works really well for this. How do I continue down this path, or how do I adapt? Be using different resources and varying your approach, and then taking breaks when you get frustrated. Take that break, reset. So last big thing I want to touch upon is the frequently asked questions that I get asked. Applicant tracking systems, what role do they play? This is an applicant tracking system is when you are applying to a job, it is the thing that is searching through your materials. So they play a big role, and that's really a big deal when it comes to your resume in the application. And that's certainly something we can talk about. Resumes is our conversation tomorrow. So we'll talk more about that. I get some questions about, is a job legit? Especially when there's kind of, they don't know the person, they're getting sent an email outside of a certain site. You can always check, look at the Better Business Bureaus, look at the Secretary of State for whatever state this company is with. You can look at general reviews on Glassdoor, but start to look if you have any of that gut questions, follow up and say. Some red flags are things, if anyone's asking you for money, if the site that they're asking you to apply to is not a secure site, those are some flags. How many jobs are not posted? They say 75 to 80%. That's where the networking comes in. That's really, there's no set number. No one really knows. We just know that there's a lot of jobs that come out of things like those internships or those fellowships that develop into a full-time position, or a conversation where you can really see what's going to happen before that job gets posted. Should I post my resume on search engines? If you want to. Sometimes people will, but they'll keep their phone number off and they'll just leave their email. It's totally up to you. The big thing I would say is before you post your jobs, or when you open up kind of profiles, look to the boxes, because a lot of times there's a box already checked that says you're willing to have phone calls from third party, and you'll start getting all these weird kind of marketing calls. How many jobs should I apply to? I tell people, if you're on a online search, strictly online and very general rule, that you should be getting about 10% response rate. So that's not a ton. And it's general. It depends on the position and how much competition, but it's to give you a little idea of the online job search. You're going to apply to a lot more jobs. When will I hear back on my application? You may or may not. The big thing is if you apply to a job and you immediately get a response that says, thank you, but we're moving on, we're not looking at you as a candidate, that usually means you said no to some of their screening questions. So that's one of your flags. The other thing is some of them will hold on to the application. Some will wait until the whole process is finished and someone has begun. So it really depends from company to company. And the last one, everyone else has it figured out. People come to me all the time and tell me everyone else has it figured out. It's not true because everyone comes to me and says that. So job search is frustrating, and I'm happy to talk to you one-on-one about it. I have a counterpart. She's also happy to talk to you one-on-one. Same thing with that URI Career Connect. Those are great resources. And then coming up this week is the Fireball week. Tomorrow's resumes, Wednesday's cover letters, and then Thursday interviewing, Friday grad school. Bridget Griffith will be a career journey, so we get to hear her story on May 11th. All of these can be found on the URI alumni career site. Whew. A lot all at once. Thank you guys. That was very quick, and I'm gonna patient with me 1 second.